Ladies and gentlemen, this is David Mirikitani with Trackwrestling. I'm here today with three people I call my friends, and we're here to talk about something really important today, and that's what's going on in the world and what's going on with racial relationships, racial harmony, and how we can do better. I'm going to start out with who I am. My name is David Mirikitani. I was born in 1970 to a Japanese father who was born in a World War II intern camp. His family was taken from California after Pearl Harbor. My mother is German, Irish, and French, so I grew up as a mixed kid in St. Louis, Missouri. My parents were married in 1967, and as my mother said, it was not very popular to marry an Asian American in the late 1960s. So I'm half Japanese and half Caucasian, German, Irish, French. I grew up initially with a lot of racism at a very early age, had to fight every day on the playground, was called a lot of names that I would care not to repeat. Was probably one of the reasons why I learned wrestling, was to defend myself and to be able to fight back. I think I've been profiled a couple of times, but certainly not to the level that we've seen now. And I've never in my life been scared for my life because of the color of my skin. And I do think that Hardell and I are two of the few minority play-by-play announcers in the world of wrestling. So I am not here to say that that is good or bad. I just think those numbers speak for themselves with the number of minority athletes that have come through the world of wrestling. I think it's probably similar in the world of MMA. We can get into that certainly with Jason. I'm going to just start with this, and Hardell or Jason, what you guys can obviously, either one of you want to lead us off. And I don't want to speak for Alex, but I will for a second here. What can somebody like myself, or what can somebody like Alex do to do better? And I'm going to make one more analogy, and then I'll give you the floor. All of you guys know I've been working on losing weight, and I've lost 40 pounds since January 6th. And it hit me this morning that I basically have lost 2 pounds a week for 21 weeks. If you looked at me for any 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks apart, you don't look any different, especially if it was after a big meal, right? But 42 pounds is progress. I still have a ways to go. I'm certainly not near as skinny as you guys are, but it's certainly better than it was. And I feel like that's what people need to do in this, is you're not going to flip a switch and tomorrow everything's going to be equal. So my request, or my goal of today, is what are steps that people can take to make positive progress, continued progress that can be seen, even if it takes a little bit of time, that a year from now, 6 months from now, in my case, 5 months after I started, that the same pants I wore to the Big 12s, Jason saw me the other night, and they don't fit anymore. So how are things, what are one or two tangible things that people that want to make the world better and don't know how, what can we do?
Well, David, I appreciate you giving us this platform and getting on here to talk about what's going on in our world right now. And I've received a lot of phone calls from many of my friends, some of them that I haven't spoke to in a while, and some of them that I see and or speak to on a regular basis, and really getting in depth about what's going on and them wanting to learn more. And I think that's something for my, non-African American folks is do a little bit more research, learn a little bit more. I'm not saying, I know there's some that are educated and up to date on everything, but, probably even be a little bit more observant of things on a regular day-to-day basis. Because as we know right now, racism is still out there. It is definitely out there. And a little quote I heard is, racism is kind of like dust, right? They want to say it's invisible. Dust sometimes can be invisible until you open up the shade or the sunscreen or whatever the case may be, and that sunlight hits that dust, and you're like, man, I got a lot of dust in my house or in my office or whatever the case may be. That's what racism is. Or that's even also still where racism is at, should I say. But, for some of them that want to get in contact with some of their locally Black Lives Matter and or NAACPs and emails, whether it's a donation or whether it's just calling one of your African-American friends or Black friends and talking to it. You know, walk me through the process. What has happened to you in your life? What do you feel like, you know, when you're getting pulled over? Have you been racially profiled walking into a store, walking out of a store, whatever the case may be? Walking behind someone of a different ethnicity than you and making a self confidence and understanding that, you know what, I'm gonna veer off to this right or left, so I won't be considered as a threat to this person, right? But I think one of the things that is going on now with more white America saying stuff and protesting more and being out in front and talking more, I think that's a step in the right direction, because as we know and as what we've seen, you know, Black folks have been doing this for a long time. Black people have been stating this for a long time. And now it's coming from some of our competitors or friends that may not have done it before, but, you know, they're fed up as well. And we've all seen what has happened right in front of our eyes. You know, I got to explain stuff to my 9-year-old son. Jason, I don't know if you have children or not, but, you know, if you do, you got to have that conversation with them. Granted, I have not shown my son the video, but I've explained to him what racism is. And his innocent 9-year-old world, you know, he has not experienced that, right? But I know somewhere down the line when he grows and he spreads his wings a little bit more, he may have to encounter that. And I want to make sure he's going to handle it the right way. So, but once again, I appreciate it, and I'll turn it over to Jason.
Yeah, thanks, Dave, for having us on. Conversations like these are important, and like I've been involved in a couple of these already, just in my other career as a realtor at the office. And to me, I think Hardell touched on it. The biggest thing is just kind of like letting people get a window into the African American experience in America, because if you look at the numbers here, a generous percentage of 14% Black and mixed race in the United States. You know, there's 300 million people, so 86% of those 300 million are white people. So if there's any, I mean, just another thing that Hardell touched on, if there's any Black people have been doing this for a number of years, demonstrating and all that. So it is encouraging to see the white people out. But if there's any real change that's going to happen, the majority, which is the white people in America, are going to have like some hard conversations and you know, make some hard choices. And that, I don't know what that means, you know, but that's where I see the solution being. I mean, Black people is 14%. In a democracy, just the numbers just don't add up there. You know, we could all go out to the voting booth and it wouldn't. We're not getting it done without white people. You know, so I think that means like, you know, that means white people having hard conversations in private. You know, like at the dinner table where Grandpa says some racist shit. Are you confronting them in front of the family? And it's not for Grandpa. It's for the 9-year-olds that are there. You know, it's not. Grandpa's going to be gone in a few years. You know, so that's you know, I've been thinking about this a lot recently, and that's where I'm at. You know, so I think education is a key. You know, like a lot of white people, we you know, every Halloween there's some adolescent that paints her face black and gets you know, skewered by everybody. You know, myself included. But how is that fair when nobody's told that child the story behind that, you know? So that, I think education starting at a younger age, a lot of those stories are missing, you know? I mean, this year, for instance, there's the 99th anniversary of I'm sure you know about this, Hardell, the Tulsa race riots.
Tulsa race riot, yeah.
And look, I found this out from a rapper, you know, and like 10 years ago. I had no idea this happened, you know? And so how am I to assume that my white neighbors, friends, they don't know about this? But so, you know, stories like that are important, you know, and it falls to like falls to like the University of Oklahoma to go down there and send students down there to exhume a mass grave of these people. Like, where's the Smithsonian? You know, where's like museums and our historical societies doing this work? You know, and spreading this knowledge. So that's something I would like to see, and that's an area where I think like this blind spot could be made up. That 86% of America has a pretty solid blind spot in that aspect of American history and the American experience, you know?
Yeah. Alex, one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on, besides the fact that we've known each other for a long time, you know, I think probably most people know, but you're the longtime assistant at Missouri, and, you know, you're a Missouri high school guy. So, and you were kind enough to point out before we got on the air how much younger you are than me, which I truly appreciate. I lighten it up a little bit. But, you know, like guys like you and me that recruited for all these years, you know, I don't think you recruit based on guys you think that can help you win and who can get scholarships and stuff like that. I think maybe if somebody qualifies for minority money, that's the only time I think if you're a good person that thought ever crosses your mind. But you're obviously on the opposite side of this, where you're a person I know that doesn't have any racial hate in your heart. So, you know, like when you hear what Hardell and Jason are saying and how, you know, obviously coming from a good place and wanting to make this better, what are your thoughts on what guys like you and me can do?
Man, it's hard. It's hard to hear just how desperate and how frustrated and how angry some of my friends are in my life. And you know this about me, I don't have a huge circle. So the people that are close to me are close. And I guess to recognize my own ignorance is, I don't think humbling is the right word. Embarrassing probably is better. And I'm a guy that has benefited tremendously from some star Black athletes throughout my career, and hope to do so in the future. I don't care if you're black, purple, polka dotted, or in between. You know, I always tell the guys that, you know, I want kids that live clean, train hard, and compete like a mother. So, you know, that's, you know, for me, my, you know, currency. But I guess that's ignorance is bliss. To think that everybody just thinks like me. Well, clearly that's not true. And fortunately for myself, I was raised in a very tolerable household. My parents both grew up in the 60s and saw the civil rights movement firsthand. Were in college during similar times of social unrest to today. And I think that really opened their eyes, even though they're from lily white America. They were kind of exposed to things and started, I think, to shape new thoughts for themselves. And that probably helped my sister and I have a better home life experience, maybe than some kids that, you know, don't get that. But to say that I was like always perfect with my thoughts or my beliefs would be incorrect and false. And so there's a lot of guilt that you feel at times, a lot of disappointment in yourself. And the biggest thing I've been trying to do recently to, you know, reconcile some of that is just to listen and to really hear what people are saying so that I can be better continually. And not just better for myself, but I think kind of what Hardell and Jason touched on. You know, I've got two children in similar ages to Hardell's son. I've got a daughter that's 10 and a son that'll be 9 here at the end of the summer. And having tough conversations with them and explaining to them that there are words that you cannot use, and here's why. And there are things that you cannot say, and not just because it's bad, but here's some of what I've learned about the root of it, and it should never, you know, be allowed to even be heard around you. And if it is, you need to correct it as well. So I think that first and foremost, hopefully I can make the world a better place through my children. because they'll be even better than I was. And then lastly, you know, my platform as a Division I wrestling coach, really having some tough conversations with our program and the kids on our team and our staff, and just making sure everybody understands what should the standard be and how we should conduct ourselves and what our beliefs should be. And if we're not there, well, why aren't we there? And how can we get there? Because I think education is really important. I've been really fortunate just at Maryland, even to be around some awesome people from the Black community in a leadership role. Damon Evans is our AD. Michael Loxley is our head football coach. Andrew Vollman's our track coach. Those guys are like, they're amazing. And just to hear them speak and how, you know, well-versed they are, obviously, with firsthand experiences, but also I think they would all recognize that, you know, and this is their word saying that they're even privileged because of, you know, where they are in their careers and what they can do for their families. And so to hear them really, you know, be reflective on themselves too, it's like, gosh, if those guys can do it, I better really step up. If those guys can step up, if they can call not just on the white community, but that they can also call on the Black community, gosh darn it, I better definitely call on the white community. So just trying to really recognize and take ownership, and then hold my children and my team really accountable, and really do my part to educate them more, and myself to continue to influence them further. I feel, I don't know if called's the right word or obligated's the right word, but it's heavy on my heart for sure.
Well, I know how you feel. I've actually talked to all of you guys off the air, and I said, you know, I don't presume to have like the broadcast range like a Joe Rogan has, but I have a platform, and I felt like if we don't do something like this, it's like not voting and then complaining about how things are. Like, maybe it doesn't make that big of a difference, but if you could make a difference, you need to do so. At least that was my thought. So I'm going to bring up a couple things here, and again, just kind of roundtable it. One, my mother teaches from the book 7 Habits of Effective People by Stephen Covey, and one of the habits is seek first to understand and then to be understood. And I think that applies to so many things in life, like whether you're a coach and an athlete, whether you're a husband and a wife, whether you're just two friends, whether it's like if I go do jujitsu with Jason, like how do I help him do, you know, how do I listen first to understand? The second thing is the importance of hope. And I think, you know, a lot of the systemic racism, and I'm going to jump around here, but like Donald Sterling and, you know, what happened with the LA Clippers, and interest rates that are different for one, you know, brown people versus not brown people. But I've recruited a lot from very, very hard neighborhoods. And I am reminded of a story. We had a kid that wouldn't go to class, and my dad and I are imploring him, good cop, bad cop, whatever. And he finally, he was about Alex's size. And I thought he was going to kick the crap out of me. He stood up, stood right over the top of me, and he said, no one from my family, no male from my family has ever lived past the age of 25. So why do I need to go to class? I think we're all coaches here. And you certainly think usually you have all the answers. And then you hear something like that, and the only thing that came out of my mouth was, I love you, you need to be the guy to break the cycle. But I grew up with 2 college school teachers, college professors. So the idea of not going to college and frankly not getting really good grades, I wouldn't have been allowed to wrestle, was like the expectation levels are opposite. So Jason, I'll start with you. I'm going to invite Kevin Jackson on while I do this. What can we do in society to try to increase hope? Like where people, and you know, again, like I know we just can't go in and like put condos in East St. Louis, but what can we do to try to create some hope?
I don't know. That's a tough question. I don't really have the answers to any of these questions. In case you haven't noticed, like these are huge existential questions for Black America. Like I think starting with some legitimate police reform is a good start. And then, I would like to see there's always a lot of talk about reparations, which I'm not crazy about, because I just don't know if you it's akin to without education there's no point in giving people money, so I would say there would need to be, instead of something like reparations, which has kind of become like a dirty word in politics. It's been very what do they call it, partisan. It's like a dirty word. So I would like to see some more, instead of the emphasis on getting people to college, more emphasis on primary education, like preschool, grade school, and start there. Start with those two things. Those are huge jobs right there. Just police reform and a bit of education reform. So somebody that lives in Kansas City and in the inner city can go to the school like my daughter goes to in Johnson County. That's what I would like to see. And then once that starts, hopefully the idea there is to have a snowball effect into everything. So that's two pieces of the puzzle, I guess.
And I know this isn't like a normal interview where I'm giving you softball questions. I know these
right.
Hard to get, but yeah. I also think that's the only way for us. We don't know the experience. Hardell, and I think this, especially Hardell, and I'll give you the floor. You're the head coach at Oklahoma Wrestling Academy. You guys run it as a nonprofit. You don't take any money as a coach. But I haven't ever looked at your roster, but I've been in your school, and over 51% of those kids are white, and they're trusting their sons and daughters to you. So you've obviously done something right.
Well, I think, and Alex kind of touched on this, and so did Jason as well, but to have some sort of hope or continue to move in the right direction, a lot of this is going to have to take place at home. So we're going to have to put a lot of onus on the mothers and fathers and aunts and uncles and everybody, around, right, to make sure that these young ones, this next generation that's coming up, they can do better than what we did, right? Or we can do better than what our relatives did, so on and so forth. And even in wrestling, right? That's one thing we've definitely missed in wrestling is more African American wrestlers. You look around, whether it's NCAAs or, even my program, for instance, we're looking to do more to branch out and get those kids, right? Jason kind of touched on that, to have someone that maybe from a different part of town or inner city to be able to go to a school like his, where his daughter or his kids are going to school at. And another thing, as far as hope and maybe some correct training for some of these police officers too. I think some of them that do have a wrestling background may know how to hold a subject down without injuring that person, should we say. But it's a good question, David, and there's a lot of different answers for it. Us guys here on the panel don't know what's right, don't know what's wrong, but I think if we continue to give some solid advice, that can happen, whether it's in our community, other folks' community, whatever the case may be. But I think a lot of it is really going to have to start at whatever address these people are living at, you know what I'm saying? And starting there and instilling these values to these young men and women that are growing up, regardless of race, creed, religion, whatever the case may be. So we can all move forward as a people. That's the big goal as well.
Is that Kevin Jackson?
What's going on, guys?
The one and only.
What's going on, fellas? What's going on? Good to see you guys.
Good to see you too, KJ.
Right on.
Yeah, the facial hair game is strong, KJ.
Strong.
Oh, dude, I was looking real rough. I was looking like Moses for a quick minute there, but I had to do my best. But I don't have to get a cut, so I'm not running out right now.
I just asked the panel, it's perfect time for you to jump in we talked a little bit just about what's going on, obviously, and then one or two things that people can do, and really Hardell and Jason spoke, and Alex and I listened, and then, you know, kind of reacted to what we think we can do based on that advice. One of the things that I had asked was, you know, like I made the analogy, and I think I texted you this, that like I lost 42 pounds in 21 weeks, and in any 2-3 weeks, you don't tell a difference, but if you wait 5 months, it's a difference. And as much as I think most of us would want to fix these problems tomorrow, what's more realistic is, can we make tomorrow 1% better than today? Can we make next month better than this month? And the guy who's a leader in all these guys, but as a leader in USA Wrestling and the leader of our developmental team, which is obviously catching kids. A lot of times, you know, kids are not born racist. I mean, like that's, you know, you're not. So what are some things that folks, black, brown, yellow, white, whatever, that you think can do, that you've seen? You've been all over the world, so is Jason, you know, that could be effective?
I think I said this before. And again, guys, I'm sorry apologize for being tardy to the call, and great seeing y'all. I have personal relationships with each and every one of you, and consider you family. So it's great to be on a call with y'all. As far as, you know, where we're at and direction that we can go in, you know, I've said on a couple interviews, don't be so fast to turn the page. I mean, I think we've been here before as far as social injustices or racial injustices or police brutality or things of that nature. So I think we've been here before. I don't think you've seen the alliance amongst people protesting and out demonstrating never before have we seen that. But I think we've been in this moment before. And so I hear what you're saying as far as, are we going to turn the page real fast and just be through this, or is there going to be some viable changes that take place within the United States that's going to make living, being an American, being here, is going to make it better for us as a people, as humanity. And so what can we do? What can we do to make those changes? I really believe what's going on right now is where we're supposed to be from a communication standpoint. I think there's a lot of communication going on. I think there's a lot of listening going on. And I think we've come to a place where we got to face the facts. There's some people that really don't care about this issue or are concerned or want to make changes. And so I think we're tasked with the checks and balances of the whole thing, and how can we actually communicate in a way that creates clear, concrete direction for tangible change, that at the end of the day, we have actionable items in which to address, so we can be a difference in our, we all play a role, but just in our community, what is a role that we're going to play that's going to allow that to grow and expand and improve life for all of its citizens. And so I think where we're at, I think there's some beginning stages of organizations taking place right now. A lot of talk, a lot of communication. I'm on several of those communication calls, and I think right now discussing what we want to do, having a clear, concrete action plan that can be addressed, and moving forward with that and sharing that information with, you know, not only wrestling people but people throughout this country.
I think we're all been watching whatever is new on sports right now. One of the things that I watched was Be Like Water, the Bruce Lee documentary. I know Clemsen and I were texting every week after The Last Dance, but you know, that was a little further back. But the Be Like Water one, really, there's a lot of things in there that spoke to me. But one of the things that I thought was important, they talked about back then, that like Asian Americans were not allowed to be, males were not allowed to be the lead, that they weren't allowed to kiss white women, that they weren't allowed to have muscularity, that they weren't allowed to be athletic. And I was talking to a friend of mine about like the movie Do the Right Thing, and you know, it's Danny Aiello's character and Spike Lee's character, and Danny Aiello's character is clearly racist, and Spike Lee points out your favorite musician, your favorite sports player, you know, baseball player, basketball player, they're all black, they're all minorities, they're all African Americans. And KJ, you said something which I know is true, is there's some people that just, and I shouldn't paraphrase it. There's some people who just have hate in their heart and don't care. This isn't a problem for them. You know, so.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry.
So to me, like, there's three kind of people. There's people that aren't a problem, which I hope all the people on this panel, you know, I think we're trying to be. There's people that are a problem and don't care. And there's people that in the middle, some version of the middle. And maybe Alex and I are somewhere in the middle, but hopefully closer to the good end. I don't know. But my question to you would be this, like, how do we, and any of you guys want to go first?
I don't think you can be on, I don't think you can be in the middle. I don't think you can be on one side and then be on the other side. I think
being indifferent, you might as well.
I think you either have to be for humanity and equal rights for all, and love for your brother, or you're not, you know. And I don't think there's a middle ground. I think there's an educational component that comes along with people that might not actually grasp the protests or even when it comes to violence that none of us agree with, and looting and those type of things, and just the temperature of the country, and knowing and understanding what's going on. I think there's one side of that, and then there's another side that really doesn't care, that might benefit from you know, this situation, but that really doesn't have that love in their heart that allows them to feel and have that. The other part of that is people you're either ignorant or you choose to be ignorant. Whereas the answers, questions, and the answers are out there with these conversations. So I don't think there's a position of being in the middle. There's either you're on the side of humanity, of when you see someone killed in the street, that it doesn't affect you somehow and make you think that, oh, there's something seriously wrong with this. Or there's another side saying, well, he probably was a criminal. He you know, making an excuse and not really being about, you know, pro-choice. You know what I mean? Not really being there. So I think you got to make a decision on how to either get on one side, because I know you're not on the other side.
Okay, so let me, and then Jason and Hardell, I agree with what you're saying. And I guess what I meant was, like, I know which side I'm on, and I know you guys know which side I'm on, or you wouldn't be on the podcast. My point is, sometimes I don't know if I'm doing enough, if I don't know I'm doing the right thing. But if it's simply a matter of, do I have hate in my heart or not? Do I see what happened and feel that was completely inexcusable? Those kind of things, it's a no-brainer for me. I understand what you're saying about the middle, and you're right. You know, you either have hate in your heart or you don't.
Well, David, I'll say something to this. Like, you are doing the right thing. These conversations, these uncomfortable conversations that we are having, is doing the right thing, right? And whether it's Jason or KJ or me or any other African-American that have had these uncomfortable conversations with their non-African-American friends, like, it's an uncomfortable conversation, you know. But also, you know, us people from the Black community, we want you to understand, and maybe, like Jason mentioned this earlier, just to get a little bitty glimpse of what it is like to be an African-American on a regular day-to-day basis. It's kind of like, you guys remember the Titans, when the daughter spent the night over at their house that night, right? They had a brick thrown through the window. The coach got upset at Denzel, but like Denzel said, welcome to my world. This happens to me every night. You're flipping out that your daughter just happened to be
about my daughter?
during that time, but this happens to me on a consistent basis here. And for you to get a glimpse of that and do something like this and have us use this platform, and you're on here, and KJ and Jason and Alex and me, like, this is a step in the right direction. And those uncomfortable conversations, I even had a provider that I called me at 11:30 on a Saturday night 2 weeks ago. And he was shook. You know, because I mean, he's also a good friend, but he's also one of my providers that I call on. So me having that uncomfortable conversation with him is a step in the right direction for him. Like we talked about earlier, education. You hear me, but are you listening now? You have to listen now to understand what we as a people are talking about and what has happened to probably these guys on this call. Can't speak for them, but yeah, I've been racially profiled, right? somewhere down the line. Somewhere down the line, I'm pretty sure my son's going to be racially profiled, or like I told him before, like, son, people will have hate in their heart for you just because the color of your skin. They don't know your values. They don't know your character. They don't know anything. Let's figure out how to handle that the right way.
Alex, I know you got a meeting.
Yeah.
I want to give
I
you
apologize. I got an electrician at my door. I got a breaker that's like keeps like popping smoke. So give me like 2 minutes. I'll come right back. I apologize.
That's
One
fine.
thing I just want to say real quick, KJ, I've known you a long time. We've got a weird history. Not weird, but it's like part competitive, part mentor, part fan in my perspective. Man, when I hear you talk, like I hear you. Like I hear the like change in your voice. I see stress on your face. Man, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I haven't reached out to you, sent you even a text message or something, my man. I'm just sorry. So
No, I appreciate
I'll
it.
be thinking about you for sure. But
Thanks, Alex.
All right, brother.
Jason, in preparation for this, for you guys, for the audience, Jason wrestled at Merrimack for my father and I. And Jason, I'm going to tell this story, and if I tell it wrong, please correct me. But you were a freshman, and you guys went out on the weekend, and you went to a party, and you went to a part of St. Louis that is frankly racist. And you went with a bunch of white kids on the team, and you guys, my understanding, you guys got jumped, and you got jumped because they didn't like the fact that a black guy was there.
Yeah.
And I remember my dad just being said that you guys were at a party, which I think those guys that know my dad, the guy's never had a drink or a smoke in his life. But I want to say to you, I never asked, I feel like I'm covering my face. I never asked you how you felt about that. So I owe you an apology for that. It's freaking 20 years too late. But I'm sorry that I did not even listen, didn't even create a dialogue. So in case that's what I meant by a person in the middle. Like clearly I love Jason. I just didn't do the right thing. And I didn't think to do that. I wasn't good enough. I wasn't smart enough. It wasn't that I didn't care. I just didn't think. And I guess that's what I'm asking from you guys is what's a trigger? What is something? So the first thing I do is go, hey, Dad, we can discipline these guys later. We need, and so Jason, I owe you an apology and I'm sincerely sorry.
I appreciate that. I was 17 years old. I really wasn't like, that wasn't your issue. Like a lot of times, just like Alex just did, people apologize, and I appreciate that, but I also feel like it's not proper to apologize for something that's not, like you didn't need to apologize for that, because you didn't do anything to make that situation happen, but and really, I don't know, man. I just like there have been incidents on social media and stuff where like a white person will just go off and start calling me or who's some black person, all kinds of names, and I've kind of noted the reaction from my peer group. Like the white people that I know are they're all very sorry all the time. They're like, oh man, I'm so sorry that happened to you. And the black people that I know are cracking jokes. Like we're over here like, oh, this guy's going crazy. Like, did you see him this and that? And, just we're taking screenshots, sending them back and forth. So I don't know. It's like a callousness maybe, or just a kind of, we talked about the numbers a little bit. And I also am of the opinion that like in a free society, racism is always going to be there. It's like murder, murder's, you're never going to get rid of murder, unless you're talking about some minority, so racism is the same way. Like people are free to think the way they want to think, and we're never going to get rid of racism. We can only hope to like remove it from our institutional structure, which I think is the real goal. So I appreciate that apology there, Dave. That was a crazy incident. I mean, the white guys that I was with, I mean, it was, you know, those guys took some damage on my behalf. Like, you remember Tony Haley broke his jaw. I mean, you know, it was a battle, you know, like, so, you know, I mean,
Well, I know I'm not responsible. I know I'm not responsible for sending you to the party, and I know I'm not.
No, yeah.
I did. I just, but you know, I think if all of us have been coaches, and you all feel like, I think at some point, unless you're perfect, you go, I should have reacted differently. And so, and I wasn't even planning on apologizing. It hadn't even really crossed my mind until we're talking about these things. So, you know, I know
that's one thing I always loved about wrestling rooms and like MMA rooms, jiu-jitsu rooms, training. You know, those guys that I went to the party with they're from that neighborhood, you know. So, but you know, we had shared the mat together, and those guys have respect for me, just like I have respect for them as a human being, as an athlete, as a training partner. And so, you know, wrestling, I feel like individual sports in general, because even on team sports, you kind of don't get that aspect where like, oh, this guy's an asshole, I might have to wrestle him though. And, you know, that just creates a different kind of bond, I feel like, than competing on a team. You know, when you're in there in the trenches with the dude every day, you know, at the end of the day, you know, this guy might be racist, but I have respect for him, and he has a certain level of respect for me that kind of like transcends all the other we're doing outside the room, you know. So I've been encouraged by that, seeing the environment of wrestling rooms and training environments in one-on-one sports like wrestling and MMA and jiu-jitsu, that type of thing. So,
you know what's
appreciate
interesting.
that, though, Dave.
Yeah, I mean, you know, like I know all you guys very well. I have love for all of you in my heart, but you know, probably Hardell's the guy I've spent the most time with recently talking about this. We were at the Big 12s before the world shut down. But I've never asked any of you guys like what it was like to be black. Like Alex has never asked me what it's like to be half Asian. And I don't even think that's a bad thing. I think in some ways it's like, I think if you really love people, you don't see that. Maybe that's bad that you don't see that, but you're just like, that's my friend. Like Alex is now in Maryland. He's not in Missouri, you know? So I know we're at 2:55 or, you know, we're about an hour in, and I know a lot of you guys had a hard out in an hour. So, you know, KJ, I'll ask you, you know, any last words on what we can be doing better, or any action points, anything you want to say? The floor is yours.
No, I think I said a couple things earlier as far as, you know, just making sure we're not so quick to turn the page and really understand and recognize that we're different, but we're all the same. And if you're coming from a place of love, then you want to see everyone treated fairly and treated equally. And I think it's evident that that might not be going on right now. And I think more and more eyes are being open. But I do believe that there must be action items that we have to take the next step towards to actually get to a place where there are some checks and balances and that we can all move forward. But I want to see our country come together as opposed to be divided. And I really feel during these times and days, there's just certain communication, talk, views, things going on that's dividing us more and more by race, by politics. I've never heard so many people talk, Republicans, Democrats, liberals, conservatives. I've never heard that so much in my life, and it causes a divide. And that creates a fear on both sides. And I think until we can address the fear individually as people, as men, what drives that fear of racism, of hate, of just having to run out and get an AK from my home, what drives that fear, until you're able to identify, recognize, and understand where that comes from and address it accordingly, I don't know how we can get to the place that we all want to get to. I'm still confident, and I still have faith that there's more good than evil and bad. But in this world, we're going to be challenged at a real high level to maintain ourselves and be righteous and think about our fellow man first. So I think these conversations are the road to doing that. But I do think there are actionable items that I know different groups and organizations are continuing to address, as well as corporations, companies, and people of power throughout the world. So I appreciate you having me on your call.
Jason?
Yeah, I appreciate the call or being here as well with these guys and just wrapping it up. I think you know, especially Alex and Dave, just the real changes are going to come from people that look like you guys, you know, because the black community is, I'm not going to say we're on the same page, but with this issue, you know, most of us are there, you know. So I think swinging around and having those hard conversations and chipping away at the majority is a good start, you know.
Thank you. Hardell?
Yeah, kind of, you know, to steal a little bit from KJ and Jason, like, once again, appreciate being on here, you know, and a lot of things that both of these guys just said, right? I follow in the same line. You can hear the passion, the concern, the want to, you know, KJ brought up a good point, you know, love, man. We got to love one another, you know, and that's one thing we got to continue to do and continue to make that change. And be optimistic, right? You know, it's a marathon. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And this whole situation is going to take some time, for sure. So we don't need that divide. We need to work as one and be together. So once again, David, I appreciate this. To all of you guys on here, you know, continue to be leaders. Continue to strive for perfection. Best of luck to you, Jason. Alex, to you, Dave, as you as well. And KJ, you continue to lead these young men and women, man. You're doing a job, dude. There's so many words I could use right now, but my time may run out. But continue to do exactly what you're doing, man. I love seeing you hollering and screaming and throwing that towel and wrapping around in that corner, man. And you know, the same type of passion that you have as a coach is exactly what you brought to this forum and this platform today, and continue to make, you know, honestly, in all due respect, as we're all trying to do, a world a better place, man. That's it.
Thanks, Hardell. It's great seeing you, man.
You too, brother.
I will say this. I think Alex is my second guest, and I think this might be very close to my 100th podcast. And you get less nervous, and this is probably the most nervous I was since the first one. I think I've literally sweated through my shirt here. But I'm glad. I think if it was comfortable, then we would not have accomplished what we were trying to accomplish. I can honestly say I love all you guys. You guys have all had major impacts on my life and continue to do so. And I think I call my mom and ask her to pray, because she's one of those people with those direct lines to heaven. And I said, you know, give me the wisdom to not say anything stupid. I don't know if that happened or not, but I'm as proud of this podcast as anything we've ever done, and I think I probably spoke by far the least I've ever spoken. So, you know, I thank all you guys. I think we all ultimately believe in the same thing, that one, wrestling, MMA, jiu-jitsu is a great unifying factor, that people that are in our sport tend to not look at color. They tend to look at, it's a more of a meritocracy, and that the relationships we build, I don't think of Alex as my white friend and Hardell and Jason as my black friends. I think of all of you guys as my friends and my brothers. So I know it took some courage on your guys' part to be on here today. I don't mean to seem like I was the only one scared or nervous. I just know I was terrified. So I love all you guys. I appreciate all you guys do to support me. And most importantly, I just appreciate your friendship and coming on today.